LeBron James told the world he's broke, no money in the bank. He said his kids control everything now. He can't even afford the clothes on his back. They're all free. He claims, right down to his wedding ring. That kind of statement from a guy people assumed was worth over $1 billion doesn't just raise eyebrows, it raises questions. So naturally, the internet did what the internet does. It ran with it. Bankruptcy talk started trending, and that's where our story about LeBron James begins. It happened during a sit-down interview that was supposed to be lighthearted. LeBron James sat across from a host asking him point blank about his net worth, the number that's been floating around headlines for years, the one that made him the first active NBA player to reach 10 figures. And instead of confirming it, LeBron dismissed it entirely. He told Complex's 360 with Speedy that the widely reported figure just wasn't accurate, going as far as saying Google search is a lie. It's way less. I got a couple thousand in my bank. That's it. He didn't stop there. He kept going, piece by piece, stripping away every symbol of wealth people associate with him. The shirt on his back, free. The pants, free. The wedding ring, engraved with a message to his wife, free. Even the durag. Then he got to the watch. LeBron was wearing a Richard Mille, his own signature edition, a piece so exclusive that only 150 were ever made, with a retail price sitting around $405,000 and a resale value that can climb past $1 million. And he said that was free too. Then came the line that turned a joke into a headline. I ain't got no money, man. My kids got all the money now. NILs and shit, they got all the money. They take care of dad, now I'm broke. Within hours, clips of the interview were everywhere. Sports pages picked it up. International outlets translated it. Some ran it completely straight, framing it as LeBron confirming financial trouble, with one outlet describing how LeBron James sparked widespread interaction on social media after statements in which he said he is broke and only has a few $1,000s in the bank, despite estimates indicating a massive fortune exceeding $1 billion. Comment sections filled up fast. Fans asked how a guy worth over $1 billion could suddenly be down to pocket change. Others pointed out the obvious. He was standing there in a $400,000 watch while saying he had nothing. That contradiction is exactly what made the clip spread. It's the kind of moment that doesn't need embellishing. A global superstar, dripping in jewelry that costs more than most houses, insisting he's flat broke. People screenshotted it. They argued about it. Some tried to do the math themselves, pointing to his known salary history, his endorsement deals, and his business holdings, trying to square that against the idea that his bank account was sitting near zero. Because here's the thing that made this land differently than his usual jokes. LeBron has spent over 2 decades being called one of the wealthiest athletes alive. His name sits next to figures like $1.2 billion, sometimes higher. Reports had already confirmed he'd crossed into billionaire territory years earlier, becoming the first active NBA player to achieve billionaire status in 2022. So when the man himself stood in front of a camera and said all of that was fiction, it didn't read as a throwaway joke to everyone watching. It read as a confession. And that's the moment people started connecting dots that weren't necessarily meant to be connected. If the number was wrong, how wrong was it? Was there debt nobody was talking about? Bad investments? A business that had quietly collapsed? The words broke and bankruptcy started appearing in the same sentence across forums and comment threads. Even though LeBron never used the word bankruptcy himself, he didn't need to. Once broke and billionaire collide in the same headline, the imagination fills in the rest. What nobody was doing in that moment was pulling up the actual paperwork, the endorsement filings, the equity stakes, the decades of contracts that built the fortune. He was joking about giving away to his kids. That part of the story takes patience most viral clips don't get. But it's the part that explains everything. How a kid from a housing project in Akron, Ohio, ended up in a position where he could joke about being broke while sitting on one of the most diversified portfolios in sports history. Because make no mistake, something is happening with LeBron James's money. It's just not what the trending topic suggested. To understand what's actually going on, you have to go back to where the fortune started, long before the Richard Mille watches and the Spring Hill deals. Back to a rookie contract and a kid who'd never seen anything close to that kind of money in his life. That's where the real story picks up, and it's a story that makes the broke joke look almost quaint by comparison. Before there was a billion-dollar empire, there was just a teenager on the cover of Sports Illustrated, still in high school, already being called the best basketball player in the country. LeBron James entered the NBA in 2003, the first overall pick, straight out of St. Vincent St. Mary High School in Akron. No college, no minor league seasoning, just a direct jump into a league that would define him. and that he would eventually help redefine financially. His NBA salary alone tells one part of the story. Over more than 2 decades, spread across stints with the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Miami Heat, and the Los Angeles Lakers, LeBron has out-earned every player in league history through his contracts. By 2026, his career NBA salary sits at roughly $581 million, a number that on its own would set up most people for several lifetimes. And that's before a single endorsement check. But the salary was never the whole plan. From early in his career, LeBron and his inner circle, childhood friend, and business partner, Maverick Carter chief among them, talked openly about wanting to build something bigger than a playing career. They weren't interested in just cashing checks and letting money sit. They wanted ownership, equity, pieces of companies that would keep growing long after his knees gave out. That mentality showed up first and most visibly through Nike. In December 2015, LeBron signed what was described as a lifetime deal with Nike, reportedly worth over $1 billion. At the time, the largest endorsement contract in the company's history. It wasn't just a flat payout either. The agreement was structured to pay him roughly $32 million a year, while including equity participation that grows alongside Nike's business performance. In other words, LeBron doesn't just get paid by Nike, he benefits when Nike itself does well, tying his financial fortunes to the growth of one of the largest sportswear companies on the planet. That single decision set the tone for everything that followed. Instead of treating brand deals as one-off paydays, LeBron and Carter began looking at every partnership as a potential ownership opportunity. It's a mindset that shows up again and again across his portfolio. Trading short-term cash for long-term equity, betting that patience would outperform an upfront check. You can see that same pattern in how he approached the NBA salary side of his career too. Rather than sign the longest, most guaranteed contracts on the table, LeBron built a reputation for signing shorter deals that kept him flexible, allowing him to negotiate again from a position of strength once his value shifted. It's a strategy that mirrors what he was doing off the court, never locking into one structure when a better one might be available a year or two down the line. And there's another layer to his court decisions that rarely gets attention when people talk about his money. During his stretch with a Big Three era roster, Business Insider estimated that LeBron sacrificed at least $60 million by restructuring his own contracts to free up salary cap space for teammates. He left money on the table repeatedly in pursuit of championships instead of maximizing every possible dollar. It's not the profile of someone reckless with finances. It's someone who understood exactly what he was trading and why. That discipline is part of what makes the broke comments so jarring in hindsight. This isn't a guy who blew through cash on impulse purchases with no plan. Every major financial decision in his career, going back over a decade, points towards someone building infrastructure, not someone burning through a fortune. By the time he reached his late 30s, still playing at an elite level, LeBron had become something the league had never really seen before. A player whose off-court earnings began to rival and eventually surpass his on-court salary. Analysts noted that while his basketball salary remains enormous, the majority of his income now comes from business activities away from the court. That's an almost unheard of arrangement for an active athlete. Most players see their business income taper compared to their playing contracts, or only really take off once retirement hits. LeBron flipped that script while he was still lacing up sneakers every night. Every one of those business threads, the Nike equity, the ownership stakes, the media company, the food chain, the sports franchise investments, didn't happen by accident. Each one was a calculated bet made years before it paid off, often for amounts that seemed almost laughably small at the time, compared to what they eventually became worth. And that's really the heart of what makes his financial story so different from almost every other athlete's. He wasn't just earning, he was compounding. To really understand how a kid who grew up in Section 8 housing in Akron ended up with a financial footprint big enough to make broke sound absurd, you have to look inside those individual bets. Starting with the media company that carries the name of the very place he grew up. If there's one venture that captures how LeBron thinks about business, it's Spring Hill. The name isn't random. It comes directly from the Section 8 housing where James spent part of his childhood. It's a callback to where he started, attached to a company built to make sure other people from similar backgrounds get a platform too. Spring Hill began as a smaller entertainment outfit, producing shows and films tied to sports and culture. Over time, it consolidated multiple ventures. Spring Hill Entertainment, the athlete media platform Uninterrupted, and the marketing agency Robot Company into one unified operation. The output has been substantial. The company has been behind movies like Hustle and Space Jam, A New Legacy, along with docuseries such as The Redeem Team and Dreamland, The Rise and Fall of Black Wall Street. LeBron didn't just lend his name to these projects in several cases, including the Space Jam sequel. He starred in them directly, blending his on-court fame with an actual ownership stake in the studio producing the content. What makes Spring Hill remarkable isn't just the film credits, it's the valuation trajectory. Early estimates from Forbes placed the entertainment arm at roughly $300 million. But as the broader Spring Hill company grew, folding in more media production, branded content deals, and athlete storytelling ventures, that number climbed dramatically. More recent estimates have the company valued at $725 million following a major round of investment and restructuring, a number that puts it firmly in unicorn territory for a media company built by an active professional athlete. There was even a period where LeBron and Carter considered selling or bringing in major outside investment for the company, with reports at the time suggesting they were exploring a possible $750 million sale or investment deal for Spring Hill. That figure alone floated years ago. Shows how quickly the perception of the company's worth had grown, from its origins as a passion project tied to his childhood housing complex. But if Spring Hill represents LeBron's instinct to build something from scratch, his Nike relationship represents the opposite skill, knowing how to negotiate equity into an already massive machine. That lifetime deal worth over $1 billion when signed wasn't just about the money paid annually. It was about tying his financial future to Nike's global performance for as long as the partnership exists. Every sneaker sold, every piece of Forever King apparel moved, every campaign built around his image feeds back into an arrangement he negotiated nearly a decade ago, one that keeps paying out regardless of whether he's actively playing. It's worth pausing on how unusual that structure actually is. Most athlete endorsement deals expire, careers end, and so do the checks. LeBron's Nike deal was built specifically to outlast his playing days, an agreement so significant that watch collaborations, capsule collections, and limited apparel drops, like the very Forever King line he referenced in that viral interview, all flow out of it. The free clothes he joked about weren't charity. They were literally product from a company he holds equity in, clothes generated by a deal that's actively adding to his net worth every time it moves off a shelf. That's part of what made his "everything I'm wearing is free" comment so misleading on the surface, and so revealing underneath it. Of course, the Richard Mille watch was free, in the sense that it was a gift tied to a brand collaboration bearing his own name. Of course, the Nike gear didn't cost him a personal cent. Those aren't signs of poverty. They're signs of a business relationship so deeply embedded in his life that the concept of paying for clothes barely applies to him anymore. When your name is the product finds its way to you without a price tag attached. This is the piece that got lost in the noise after that interview clip spread. People heard free and pictured charity or dependency. What was actually being described was the end result of a decade of equity deals stacking on top of each other. Deals where LeBron chose long-term ownership over short-term cash again and again, going all the way back to a phone call in 2011 that, at the time, almost didn't happen at all. That call, and the tiny, almost forgettable investment that came out of it, would end up connecting LeBron James to a Premier League football club, a Major League Baseball franchise, and an NHL team, all through a stake that started at just a few $1 million. It's arguably the single best example of his entire financial philosophy in action. And it's where the story of his empire really starts to turn from impressive to almost unbelievable. In 2011, LeBron James was handed a decision that, on paper, looked minor. He could take a straightforward promotional payday, or he could accept a smaller amount of cash up front in exchange for equity in a group that owned an English football club most Americans barely followed at the time. Reports later revealed that he reportedly almost said no to the whole arrangement. He said yes anyway. LeBron put in roughly $6.5 million for a stake connected to Fenway Sports Group, the parent company of Liverpool FC, the Boston Red Sox, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. At the time, Liverpool wasn't the global powerhouse it's become. The club was valued at somewhere in the range of $300 million when he first bought in, a fraction of what it would eventually be worth. Over the following decade, that stake evolved. In 2021, LeBron and Carter converted their original position into a broader ownership share within Fenway Sports Group itself, expanding their exposure beyond just the football club to the entire portfolio of franchises under the FSG umbrella. Then in 2023, that stake grew again as part of a lifetime marketing partnership that increased LeBron's equity within the company, a deal that came the same year reports noted the world's highest-paid active athlete was doubling down on ownership rather than simply collecting appearance fees. The number today is staggering relative to where it started. Liverpool's valuation has been estimated at over $4 billion. Some reports push that figure even higher, past $5 billion, turning LeBron's original $6.5 million commitment into a stake worth somewhere around $90 to $108 million. That's a return that dwarfs almost anything else in his portfolio, built entirely from a decision he almost turned down. It wasn't a one-off either. That same instinct, take equity, be patient, let the business compound, shows up across nearly every other venture he's touched. Take Blaze Pizza. In 2012, LeBron, Carter, and businessman Paul Wachter put less than $1 million combined into a small Los Angeles-based pizza chain that barely had a footprint outside a handful of locations. Within 5 years, that investment was worth a whopping $25 million, as the chain expanded into a nationally recognized brand with dozens of franchise locations across the country. LeBron didn't just sit back as a silent investor either. He's shown up in promotional videos working behind the counter, leaning into the brand the same way he leans into every company he's attached his name to. From there, the portfolio only widens. He's held stakes in fitness equipment company Tonal, ride-share giant Lyft, sports gaming company Status Pro, and tequila brand Lobos 1707. There have been reports connecting him to a minority ownership position in Italian football club AC Milan, extending his sports ownership interests beyond Liverpool and into a second continent's football market entirely. Add in real estate holdings spanning Beverly Hills, Brentwood, and his home base in Akron, properties reportedly carrying combined valuations north of $50 million. And the picture becomes one of an athlete who has systematically converted every available dollar of leverage into an ownership stake somewhere. None of this happened through luck. Each individual bet, taken on its own, might look modest, $1 million here, $6 million there, but strung together over more than a decade. With LeBron consistently choosing equity over cash at nearly every turn, the compounding effect created something almost impossible to replicate. Most athletes see their earning power peak during their playing days and taper off after retirement. LeBron built a structure where his business income kept growing while he was still active on the court, insulated from the eventual decline that ends every playing career. That's the part of the story that never made it into the viral clips about him being broke. Nobody was screenshotting the Fenway Sports Group equity table. Nobody was quoting the Spring Hill valuation alongside the Richard Mille joke. The broke narrative spread because it's simple, funny, and contradicts the number people expect. The actual portfolio behind it takes 5 separate deals, 3 decades of context, and a decent amount of patience to explain, which is exactly why most people never bothered to look past the headline. But looking past the headline is where the real answer lives. And it's an answer that reframes everything about what that viral interview moment actually meant, not as a confession of financial trouble, but as something else entirely. So where does that leave the moment that started all of this? The interview, the Richard Mille, the claim that his kids control everything now. Once you line it up against the actual portfolio, the picture becomes pretty clear. LeBron wasn't describing a man in financial distress. He was describing, in his own exaggerated way, a system so thoroughly built on brand equity and business ownership that cash in a personal checking account barely matters anymore. Forbes' most recent estimate puts his fortune at roughly $1.4 billion, placing him among the wealthiest athletes on the planet, and cementing his place as the first active NBA player to cross into billionaire territory. Other outlets have landed on slightly different numbers, some closer to $1.2 billion, one estimate even pushing past $1.76 billion once every equity stake and appreciating asset gets factored in. The exact figure moves depending on who's counting and when, since so much of his worth sits in private company equity and sports franchise valuations that shift constantly. But every version of that number lands in the same territory: a fortune built from a $581 million NBA salary, a $1 billion lifetime Nike partnership, a media company worth hundreds of millions, and ownership slices in a Premier League football club, a pizza chain, and a handful of consumer startups. None of that contradicts what he said in that interview. It just means the broke comment was never really about his balance sheet. It was about the mechanics of how someone at his level actually operates. When your endorsement deal supplies your wardrobe, when your equity stakes generate wealth independent of anything sitting in a checking account, when your kids are building their own NIL earnings and business ventures alongside you, the traditional idea of personal spending money stops applying in the way it does for everyone else. He wasn't wrong that very little of his day-to-day life runs through a wallet. He just phrased it in a way built for laughs, and the internet predictably ran with the literal version instead of the punchline. There's also a human layer to this that got buried under the bankruptcy chatter. LeBron pointed to his kids taking care of him now, a nod to the next generation stepping into their own earning potential. Bronny James joining him on the Lakers roster made them the first father-son duo to play together in NBA history, a milestone that extends the family's business relevance well beyond LeBron's own playing clock. Every deal, every piece of content, every brand partnership tied to the James name now has a second generation attached to it, which only adds to the long-term value of everything his companies have built. And LeBron's own next chapter is still being written. Reports throughout the year tracked speculation about his future. Teams reportedly circling him during free agency, insiders offering conflicting reads on his intentions, and eventually confirmation that his path forward would take him away from the Lakers roster he'd called home for years. Through all of it, one thing stayed constant. The business empire kept operating independently of whatever jersey he wore next. Sponsors don't require a specific team logo. Equity stakes in a football club, a pizza chain, or a media company don't pause because a player changes addresses. That's precisely the point of building wealth the way he did. None of it depends on him staying in one place, or even on him continuing to play at all. That's really the through line of this entire story. The viral clip made it sound like something had gone wrong, like a fortune built over 2 decades had quietly evaporated, leaving a global icon joking his way through an uncomfortable truth. What the deeper research shows is closer to the opposite. The joke worked precisely because it was so far from reality. A man who genuinely had nothing wouldn't be wearing a $405,000 watch bearing his own name while making that claim. A man in real financial trouble wouldn't have equity sitting in a football club valued past $4 billion, or a media company valued at $725 million, or a lifetime Nike deal that pays out regardless of what he does next in his career. What the interview actually revealed, once you strip away the punchline, is how completely LeBron James restructured what wealth even means for an athlete. He didn't just get paid to play basketball for over 2 decades. He built a system where basketball became just one input among many. Nike, Spring Hill, Fenway, Blaze, and a growing list of smaller bets, all compounding at the same time. None of them dependent on him lacing up sneakers for a single additional game. So the bank account he joked about having a couple thousand in might genuinely be true, in the narrowest possible sense. It just doesn't matter, because it was never really where his wealth lived in the first place. The empire built around a kid from Akron who once slept on borrowed couches has grown into something that runs itself now, one equity stake, one brand deal, one ownership share at a time, still compounding long after the cameras stop rolling and the punchline stops trending.